Everybody ready? Remember, as we vote, as you vote or have dialogue, switch your deal, switch, and you get a green, should get a green light. Well, we'll let the record show it is 3 o'clock. The 3 o'clock whistle's going off, and it's right on time. And we'll call to order the regular quarterly meeting of the Durant Community Facilities Authority of December the 1st of 2020. And ask the secretary to call the roll, please.
Trustee Baxter is absent. Trustee Dillard? Here. Trustee Gosnell?
Here.
Trustee Grover? Absent. Trustee Morris?
Here.
Trustee Pierce? Absent. Trustee Tuttle is absent. Vice Chairman Webb?
Here.
Chairman Tomlinson?
Here. For the record, we do have a quorum. And may still have one or two show up. Our first order of business, not sure if you're familiar with the consent items, but under item number 1, we have consent items A, B, and C. We can consider those all together unless someone has questions or discussion. Then we'll pull that item for discussion or for consideration under item number 2. So is there any items under the consent items, A, B, or C, to be removed for discussion? If not, would entertain a motion to approve the consent items.
I move we approve all consent items.
We have a motion,
Second it.
and we have a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, the secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Dillard?
Aye.
Trustee Gosnell?
Aye.
Trustee Morris?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Webb?
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson?
Aye, motion carries. Item number 2 will then require no action. Takes us to the information items. Item number 3. Under number A is our financial report. Ms. Ann Chen is here.
Hi.
Hi, Ms. Ann Chen.
Well, I think in your file, there's a report with a colorful paper. And this is for the October's report. And the first one is a blue page. This is your checking account information. And the balance was $2,470,099.85. And you can see past few months, our ending balance keep increasing. Our sales tax revenue, we are really fortunate that our sales tax revenue is pretty good.
Yes, we are, and not only locally supported by the citizens, but man, have you seen those, what do you call them, online internet record sales too? That'll be good. Now that we participate in the sales tax of that too, that's, I'm sorry, Ms. Ann Chen, go ahead.
And the second colorful page is a yellow one. This is kind of our, like our revenue and expense report.
Any questions for Ms. Ann Chen on the revenue and expense summary? Yep.
And then, yes, I also attached the sales tax report at the end. Do you have any question?
Does that look like that average is around 10%? I mean, for the year? Yeah. Any questions for Ms. Han-Chen?
Do we have any theories why it took a slight dip in October?
This is October, the November, we haven't do the entry yet. And, but I already have the November's sales tax. Do you want it?
Historically, it kind of looks like October takes a little dip, other than 2017, 2018, maybe.
And I will say your reports are very easy to understand. They're very well prepared. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead and let the cat out of the bag. What's the November number?
You want to see the November?
Do we have a November? Oh, we should, yeah.
I can go get it.
Oh, no, I thought you said you had it, so I was just,
Oh.
yeah, if you had it in your pocket, I was gonna say, sure, share it, but, no, that's fine, that's fine.
If I recall, though, it was a good number, wasn't it, John? Okay, thank you, Ms. Han-Chen. That requires no action. So we will move to item number B, under information items, the Ron Cross Senior Activity Center renovation project update. I believe we have Mr. Shane Knight and the city manager, John Dean, too.
So I'm gonna switch to, I like that mask because it doesn't fog up my glasses, but it muffles everything that I say, so. Yeah, a quick update. We actually had, at your last meeting, we awarded contract to Caven's Construction Group. All of their paperwork and agreements are in. Their clock actually started today on their construction timeline. We had a pre-construction meeting there at 10 a.m. this morning to do a full walkthrough with their crews and compare those to the plans that we had set out. It was a good meeting. No surprises yet, but they haven't taken any walls down yet either. So, but their construction timeline started today, and I think if I remember correctly, it's 150 days on their contract. So, and they will have their full demolition crew on site first thing Monday morning to actually start the construction process. So you may see some dumpsters and equipment and that sort of thing arrive over the course of this week, and then men on the ground starting Monday morning.
I think you were mentioning too that maybe spring of next year.
Yes, sir.
Kind of a move-in
Yes, sir.
time frame.
Yes, and that's, you know, one of the things that they pointed out this morning. They've actually already gotten their submittals on the kitchen equipment, and they're gonna be turning those into us this week, because those do have quite a long lead time. And so we're gonna try and turn around the kitchen equipment approvals as quickly as possible so they can go ahead and get those on order. I think the biggest question mark in all of it is how quickly they can get material these days, so.
And that bid did not include, I think, furniture, as I recall.
That bid does not include the actual furniture. So we have that package about, I'd say 80% complete in our office. I actually was talking with Mike this morning. We're gonna have a meeting with he and Mr. Dean next week to kind of look at some of that furniture and talk about what their vision for some of those rooms may be, so that we can be sure we have the furniture allotted appropriately for what we're looking for.
Okay.
I have a
Sorry,
question.
do I know Mike back there?
So Shane mentioned Mike.
Did I let the cat out of the bag?
Yeah, you let the cat, that's okay. No specific order. Mike, he is gonna be the senior center director.
All right.
So he just started last week. So
sir.
perfect timing to get him on board and run this project, so.
Welcome aboard, Mike.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Where you from?
I'm from Denison, Texas,
Okay,
so just right across the border.
yeah.
I have a question for somebody, maybe you. So 150 days, that means they'll be out around May 1st. Does the city have things we have to do to get that open after that, or will it be ready for people to come enjoy it around then?
You wanna fill that or you want me to?
Well, that's definitely the hope, to have that up and running by then, because at that point, we will have the entire kitchen compliant up to code and have everything ready to go, so that anything that is operating out of the current one can already be moved over, and then we can, depending on the state of how things are opening, I know most, any comparable center is closed for most activities right now due to the pandemic, but once restrictions are opened up with that, we can look at full service as well.
I'll add one quick thing. We'll typically get a substantial completion on the construction prior to the end date. And at that substantial completion, the city can actually start moving some of their property into the building, so that once that construction deadline date does hit, you'd be ready for occupancy close thereafter, so.
So I get questions all the time, when are we gonna open? The answer right now would be early summer, is that correct?
I think that's a safe answer.
I think Mike's question made me think of one too, like, as construction goes along and inspections occur and that sort of thing, will like the health department be like, inspecting like the kitchen stuff, or what, is there a?
They'll typically take a look at our plans and give approval off of those plans, and then
Yeah.
they'll come in at the very end and do a physical inspection.
Okay. Cool. So Mike, Denison and that area down there, that's considered the Baja of Oklahoma, I think, isn't it?
Something like that.
Okay. Well, welcome aboard, man.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions for Mike or for Shane or John?
That's a quick turn. I'm ready to see stuff going on.
Yeah.
I know, it's gonna be exciting. It's nice
Yeah.
to see it finally take shape.
Yeah.
I think, you know, when we first came in here before you guys, I think we mentioned Gay Cunningham and I had been working on this for close to 10 years, and
Yeah.
it's finally nice to see it land somewhere and take shape, so. it's
Gay and
exciting.
Judy Polson called me in my previous life as a banker, and we would take one of those months at the senior center for birthdays and bring a cake and gifts and that kind of thing. Matter of fact, I think it was December, because we would have Christmas gifts.
Yeah.
And I was always very pleased, that the activity and the excitement and the participation. Facilities were the only downside of that, and so this, obviously, this is not a pet project of mine, it's just
Yeah.
something I'm familiar with, and so
Yeah.
I'm very pleased that we're gonna have something that we can be very proud of, and that our senior citizens can be proud of and enjoy, so,
I think so.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, thanks.
Thank you, guys. That takes us to item number 3C, under the information items, the Arena Convocation Center. And AD Baxter's not here, but we do have,
You know what, we're practicing basketball, and it appears that we're going to get to play some basketball in there. But other than that, no activities, no no commencement, anything of that nature, but,
The arena's still open for folks to,
yeah, as long as you're distanced and masked, the buildings are open. But I know that there is in all buildings, you know, a tracking, sign in, log in type stuff. So quite frankly, I'm assuming that that's the case, there, but I know it is in every other building. So yeah, I'm assuming that's the case at the,
do they have a schedule,
The arena.
basketball schedule yet?
you know, I'm not sure. I think it has been posted. And it's a limited number of games. They'll all be conference games, and I think each team will have an opportunity then to play two non-conference games. Typically, those non-conference games, we get to go to bigger schools, and they write us a check to go show up and scare the pants off of OU last year, and then they write us a big check. But I'm not sure exactly what that looks like this year. Just a limited number of games. So
Too early to know anything about.
yeah, and I'm not sure who's going to get to watch. So
We don't know about fan participation.
right.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else, Mark?
Oh, no, nothing I can think of. Just wish we're having a commencement. So
Okay. Jim, or John, anybody here for the World Sports Complex? Whoop,
hey, there we
Caleb,
go.
is that Caleb?
Yep. Sorry.
He was hiding over there,
Hidden.
Caleb. I
Hiding,
couldn't
yeah.
see you.
So this will be my first report. I didn't make enough copies, so I apologize, but
You're fine.
I'll read off everything as well.
Do you have one? You got one?
Yeah, I have one. I'll go ahead and just read these off. So we've had quite a lot happen since I was introduced in August. The big thing right now, the complex is going to be shut down, so we're winterizing. We're working on that. We got our first frost today, so we're not going to be starting back up until about February. During that time, we're going to be working on projects. We already have been working on some projects. I'm going to skip down just a little bit. So one of the big projects we did was Oklahoma LED came in and did all the lights, which is, as you probably know, it's happening throughout the city. But they went ahead and did all of ours. They did our locker rooms, concessions, everything. That's important because we can get those up to date, especially things like the locker room that haven't been working in quite some time, making those available for use for tournaments and things like that. We have a meeting this week with Oklahoma LED to go over field lights, so maybe getting those replaced, looking at what that would cost and, you know, if it'd be beneficial in the long run. We've been fixing some issues just around the complex, you know, electrical problems and things of that nature that were need to be fixed. One of the big projects we worked on was putting AC and heating units in the concession stands, so we had to do that to be up to safety and health compliance. So that was something we did. Those still need to be, we have to put like pool windows in there for to meet COVID requirements, and so those will be ready by February or March when we start back up again. The pavilions there, when you enter the complex, at baseball and football, pavilion lights have been put in, so when people are going in and out at night, they'll be able to see. So just, again, working on safety things, putting in eye wash stations, updating first aid, defibrillators, that kind of stuff. We're looking at some bigger projects. Some stuff we've looked at were field covers, so trying to figure out how we could get some shade over the ball fields that don't have shade. Had a couple companies come in and give estimates on those. Looking at some things to help with like batter's eye and just fence toppers and things that would help again with safety of the players and making sure they're not hurt. And then additionally, we've looked at estimates on benches for the soccer fields and the football fields, because currently they don't have benches out there at the complex. Something for the kids, participants to sit on. In terms of tournaments, I believe we talked a little bit about needing to get tournaments in there. We are working with PAC Sports to host 13 tournaments there from March through July. So those are agreed on. They've set those dates, and then we're going to continue to work to book more tournaments and events, and hopefully fill that thing up as much as we can. We're aiming for 3 out of 4 weekends in a month, but if we can get more, we can get more. Another big project, so scoreboards. A lot of them are broken and need parts replaced, and it's pretty expensive to keep up with them. We have an agreement with Youth Scoreboards to put in 4 new scoreboards and video boards at no cost to us. So they'll go out and market them and get people to do advertising for it. And all we have to do is agree to put them in and run the electrical on it. And they'll do all the maintenance and stuff like that. So it got us 4 new free scoreboards basically, which was a big deal. Jumping back up to the top, we hired a new recreation and marketing coordinator. We've been working on a marketing plan. We just turned that in, and it's kind of just going to set the guidelines for how we want to market and go after tournaments and events and stuff like that. But I'll go ahead and let her introduce herself. Her name's Carissa McKessick.
Hello, I am Carissa McKessick. I came from Kansas City, took a little bit and lived in Texas, so I moved from Texas here to Durant. But I have a master's in sports management, so I love the marketing promotions, and I'm super excited to get started and promote our awesome parks and our multi-sports facility.
Awesome.
We're happy to have you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Welcome.
excellent.
All right. So I know I threw a lot at you. It's moving fast. We're trying to get things caught up and going. Do you have any questions about any of the things I mentioned, or any questions for me in general?
Any questions for Caleb? Any comments?
I like the fact you got a plan on a piece of paper. I'm a paper guy, so that looks good. All those things sound really nice to me,
Yeah, and that,
especially free scoreboards.
yeah, that's a big project. It's through
Yeah.
Barry Switzer's
Yeah.
youth scoreboards program. So
Yeah.
me and James got to meet him, and he came up here and took a look at the complex. He's pretty impressed with it. It's a good complex. We just got to make use of it.
What video boards? What size?
They have 2 options. Do you remember exactly, James?
I think they're 8 by 12,
Really? Okay. Yeah, significant. Yeah.
and they have both the video board and scoreboard.
Right.
So, again, like Caleb said, I came up and looked at our facility, and right now we're going to put 2 on the softball fields, the smaller fields,
Uh-huh.
and 2 on the smaller baseball fields.
Got it.
And we're entertaining the thought process of possibly moving. We don't have a lot of people use the large softball fields, which they were created for adults, and there's really not a league, much of anything. We think it might be prudent, and we're looking at the fact of possibly moving those fences in. And if we do that, we're gonna take the mounds off the baseball fields and use a portable mound, put base pegs at different distances on those fields, so you could conceivably have either 6 softball games or 6 baseball games going at one time out there. And so that'd help you host quite a larger tournament. And those are some of the ideas that we're looking at, so. And if we do that, we'll get 2 more scoreboards as well.
I've got Carissa's name listed here. What was your name?
Sorry.
Caleb
Gwaltney,
Walt, G-W.
Gwaltney, Gwaltney, Gwaltney.
Glad to have you.
Well, and I just would comment too that, really on behalf of this authority, we are pleased that to have Caleb aboard, and was it Carissa? Carissa?
Yes, sir.
We've kind of been long overdue on trying to realize the potential of our sports complex facility, and these folks have hit the ground running. I know Caleb initially made some trips, and I even got to participate in a meeting with he and John and James, and someone else was there, I forget, but in this list, I'm pleased to see a lot of that discussion is on this list. And like Mark said too, that's a plan, and what is that? plan your work and work your plan.
That's right.
So we're pleased to see that we're beginning to take some steps of that long journey, if you will. So any other comments or questions for Caleb or James or Carissa?
One of the
Thank-
things he mentioned that they're working on a marketing plan. We're also working on a master parks plan as a whole. I'm a plan guy too, that I like to have it on paper and be able then that hopefully there's not a lot of surprises and you work your plan, so.
You have more? Do you have anything else, Caleb?
No, that's all I have for now.
Great report, great report.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Okay, that takes us to item number 4 under administrative. And today we have, James is back up there, Assistant City Manager James Dalton, and he's going to discuss with us infrastructure improvements at Carl Albert and Dixon Durant Parks, and we may consider taking action today. I'll leave that for James and John's recommendation if we get to that. Okay. Okay,
Thank you.
floor is
Thank you,
yours, James.
Jerry. Appreciate that. When John came, we looked at span of control where we have certain departments that we're responsible for, and Parks was one that John assigned to me. And when we started looking, we noticed there were a lot of issues that we're way behind on, not just at the sports complex, but at all of our parks. We have 2, what we would call more feature parks that gets more use than any other of the parks, that being Carl Albert, and that also being the Dixon Durant, or what we know locals as the Rocket Park. So anyway, but we've looked at some of these infrastructure needs. 4 years ago, we started on a project to do the playground area and improvements at Carl Albert Park. That project has drug on, but we have to close that project by the end of this December. We have 30 days to get it closed. When we started looking at that, it still is going to take quite a bit of work, but we've came a long way with it at the same time. When you do one part of a project, you realize there are so many other parts within that same project that need improvement. We did have, if you get an opportunity to go out there, there's a dream court on the west end. In the center is going to be a multi-purpose court. On the east end of that fenced-in area are going to be 2 playgrounds, one for smaller, one for larger kids. So when we were looking at that, part of that grant project is that has to be ADA compliant. You have to be able to park, get out of your vehicle, get to those playgrounds. And we started noticing that we have a lot of issues with being ADA compliant. If you go out today, you're going to notice 2 projects that's been completed that are significant. We now have the lights working out there again. Where the old tennis courts used to be, they have been replaced by Oklahoma LED, and they are all LED. There are 26 LED lights out there now that will illuminate that playground and will also illuminate the parking areas. So that's a dramatic improvement. Today, our street department and parks department finished a 2-inch asphalt overlay on the parking lot that is due west of the fenced-in dream court area. So that brings me to asking for money. So as we started looking at this particular park and the Rocket Park, there were a lot of things that were pretty glowing to us. So with planning, again, Mark, I wanted to put together this kind of an infrastructure plan on some of the things that we need, this PowerPoint, and I'd kind of like to go through it with you guys and just kind of show you some of the needs that we have. I would like to go through that, but it is not working. You want to advance it for me? Probably the batteries are bad.
James, I don't know, maybe I should wait while he's getting that, but let me remind the authority that, in our 15, maybe 16-year lifetime of this authority, the original meaning and for this authority was to oversee the construction and the expenses of the Durant Sports Complex and the Southeastern Arena, and then those several improvements at the Paul Laird Field. That occurred probably over the first 2 to 4 years. From that time on, it was this authority's still had oversight of expenses, and to this day, expenses. Now, what's included in that, the bylaws, the trust indenture, and we had one of the first recommendations some few months ago from the city manager for us to consider spending or assisting the city with this senior citizen project, and you approved that. In that trust indenture is the ability for this authority, if indeed we have sufficient funding from the 1/4 cent sales tax, not only to service our debt and take care of the debt service, but there's the document says this authority can consider other improvements to particularly maybe parks and city infrastructure. I just wanted to remind us all of that potential. That authority is there. And James, of course, just mentioned he's going to be asking for some money. So just to add that to your thought process, that we have that ability by the documents itself, the trust. Sorry, James, go ahead.
No, thank you, Jerry. Let's try this again. This is currently the Carl Albert overview that kind of shows you the parking lot. The lot in black is the lot just to the west of the Dream Court, and that overlay project was done yesterday and today by our street and parks department.
I hope that was our paving machine I saw out there, wasn't it?
Yes, sir, that was our paving
So happy
machine.
to see our machine out working. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And matter of fact, Jerry Burke, who runs our city garage, went out there to ensure that everything worked with that machine, and it did a pretty good job. So again, it has that 2-inch overlay on it, which helped dramatically. That was the old tennis courts that a few years back there had been a coating put over the top of it of some sort of a silicone type or plastic type coating, and it did not adhere. It did not stay. So we have it now with that new overlay on it. So what I wanted to do, though, was just kind of show you there are other parking lots. There's an east lot and a far west lot. The east lot is again going to be where the small playground area is for the little kids. And then that far west lot over there is where that skate park and all is located. So I just kind of I took a lot of pictures worth 1,000 words, so let me back us up right here. This is the east parking lot that I was referencing, and you can see the fenced-in area there where the playground's going to be in the background. And they are starting to put up some of the playground equipment. I intentionally took this when we had rain the other day so I could show that it obviously has a drainage problem. The problem with the drainage is that along the roadway, the ditches are not adequate to carry the flow of water. So what it does is it routes it down to the north of the playground and along the roadway as well. And then when it gets to that parking lot, it cuts across where the arrows are there. So it erodes away the parking lot. And you can kind of see that obviously it's not in good shape there at all, okay? The fix for that, we think, would be as that water comes down, of course, we'll go change some of those ditches, and so that a lot of the water would be carried along the roadway and get to an already existing drainage area. And then on this particular parking lot, we would create a concrete swell that would be able to withstand the water better than asphalt would, and it'd carry any additional water off of that parking lot and on down to Chuckwall Creek. So if you were out there, you can see there's a lot of holes, a lot of drainage issues, and that in no way is going to be ADA compliant. Neither is the sidewalk going up to the playground equipment either. So as we look at that, then we're going to move over. This is the parking lot on the far west side by the skate park area. Again, you can see a drainage issue here. So we're going to have to improve that and funnel that water away. If you were out there at the skate park area, there is a little bit of asphalt, just one width of about 12 foot wide where vehicles can park, and the rest of it is actually gravel. And again, that would not be ADA compliant at all. While we were out there, we went ahead and looked at the swimming pool parking lot as well. As the park gets busier, hopefully we get past COVID, we start having events there. People start using that facility, plus in the months when the swimming pool is open, this parking lot's heavily used. As you can see from the patch there, that is a hole where the subsoil or the sub-base of that parking lot has broken away completely. Next picture shows, again, the same type of deal where, again, that parking lot is breaking down. You see all the cracks in it, and the surface is no longer, if you were trying to use some sort of a walking device or a wheelchair, it'd be really difficult to go across these parking lots that we have. That's what it looks like when I just took a picture down, so you can tell there's not much asphalt left to this. Again, over time, we did not curb and gutter this at all. So over time, the grass has grown up into that and further eroded that parking lot as well. The other thing that we looked at is you guys have been hearing, I know, from our parks people and all, that we're having quite a bit of vandalism and things goes on in our parks, and we have some because a lot of these parks are pretty dark. After hours, we didn't have any lighting out there, so it was just kind of whoever, and we couldn't detect it. So we also saw that there were a lot of people who liked to walk on that track after hours possibly, and it was, it was pretty dismal. So what I did was I kind of came up with a Carl Albert track lighting plan. I came up with a lighting plan for the whole park as a whole, and then also for the Durant-Dixon Park, who also has a walking track. Where you see the yellow pins would be where we would put metal poles with lights that would illuminate that track on the areas where there is absolutely no lighting right now at all. Okay, that would facilitate more use of that track. As we go to the next one, I have pulled away from it, and there are 0 lights in the parking lot at the swimming pool. So what I've done there is I've added, again, you see yellow pins. Those would illuminate around the parking lot. And then as you see outside of the parking lot, you'll see some red pins. Those particular lights, we were able to, when ODOT started working on 75, they had to take down those aluminum light poles that were out there, and we were able to secure 34 or 37 of those actual light poles. And we think we can repurpose those along Carl Albert, along Brookside, to really help lighting right around that park and improve that safety dramatically right there as people are running across the road or getting out of their car and crossing from one side to the other. Plus, it just enhanced the entire area. And then this kind of gives you an overview, again, showing down around the walking track, showing around the swimming pool, and then the lights coming off of Washington on the Carl Albert, then on to Gil Farrell, and then also on Brookside. Everywhere where you see a red stick pin there would be one of those larger highway lights. And we think that would really illuminate that park as a whole. I was able about, 8 or 10 months ago, I went to state surplus quite a bit. And there are a lot of times when you go to state surplus, you either strike out or you hit a home run. And this particular light pole that I'm showing you is like the ones that are on our viaduct over here. And I was up there one day, and they had 11 of those light poles with all the lighting fixtures, and was able to procure those for a total of $7,000. So we think that each of those poles, if you had to buy them individually, somewhere $17,000, $18,000 a piece. So we were able to get 10 of those, 11 of them, possibly. And those are the poles that I would like to use on the walking track area at Carl Albert, and also around that swimming pool parking lot, okay? These, like the current lights at the multi-sports complex, are like the lights that were taken off of the highway, that we have 30, 34, 37, somewhere in that range. And I would like to use those. That's where you see the red push pins marked on the map. So if you were to go back to that overall, that kind of gives you a better idea which pole would be where and how much illumination you would get out of those. So we think that would dramatically improve the appearance of the park. It would improve the hours of usage of the park, and just make it a safer area as a whole there. So I just wanted to show you that. And then we'll go back on further. Now, when we go over to Dixon Durant, I also looked. There are some wooden poles there with what I call the old-timey yard light. They don't provide much illumination there. And over time, they lose some of their intensity. They lose some of their lumens just by age. So what I'd like to do was, at this park, you see a lot of vandalism there, and that's because it's dark. We've had citizen complaints about how dark that is and how we need to maybe clean that up. So what I'd like to do is improve the lighting around that park as well. And if you look at, that's an overview of that park. And if you'll notice, there are, I believe, 11 of the larger lights that we would put around the street and through the park as well, so that it should illuminate that area much, much more. Also, if you get an opportunity to go by and look, Oklahoma LED, when we negotiated with them, they are replacing all the lights that's on the tennis courts with LED lighting. I know Caleb mentioned earlier about the sports having Oklahoma LED and their one of their sister firms look at our sports lighting. To give you an idea, like on sports lighting, at the sports complex, there's 274 1,500 watt light bulbs that light that complex. I had OG&E come down and meet with me this last week. They think we could reduce our lighting cost by about 2/3 by going to LED lighting. So, plus the other thing that we look at on the LED lighting is the fact that the maintenance on those is very minimal. While the average life of one of these sports bulbs may be 5,000 to 10,000 hours, the LED light bulb is 50,000. And on a lot of these poles, they're 30, 35 to, at the sports complex, 50-foot poles. So you have to have special equipment to actually change those out, and it is somewhat of a laborious chore to do that. So, but I just kind of wanted to show you some of the things we're looking at, and then some of the other improvements that we made. We made some real nice bathrooms at both the Rocket Park and at Carl Albert, but we didn't put any heat in them. So in the wintertime, or when we get to this for 3 or 4 months, they're locked up, and we have to rent porta potties and stick out there. We think that's really not our best foot forward, and we would like to go in there and put some sort of heat in these restrooms where they can be used year-round, and to serve our people a little better. Those restrooms do have electric to them, but depending on what sort of heat source we put in there, we may have to enhance that quite a bit. So go from a 110 maybe to a 220 or something like that. Another thing that we see, this is at Dixon Durant Park. This is under one of the pavilions. I'm not 100% sure who did the work on that concrete, but whoever did it did not put any steel in it. We have extremely expansive soils in Oklahoma, and as we get moisture, that soil expands and then it contracts. And here is a result. This is under the pavilion at Dixon Durant Park, so that obviously needs to be replaced. You can kind of get a feel. It is not just in one area, it is the entire concrete underneath that pavilion. Rendered it almost non-usable for some people. We also have noticed that we have damage to the walking tracks at Dixon Durant. It would appear that somebody has driven over that with something way too heavy and cracked that concrete, and there's places where that's separated and it has lifted, raised up, so it makes a trip hazard in there. And also, as you can see, it allows grass and everything to grow into it, and our attempt at patching it was not the best either, so I'll just leave it there. So what I would like to do, and just to kind of give you some numbers, we know that it cost us to put a 2-inch overlay, and this was our people and our equipment, on that center parking lot at Carl Albert. It cost us $19,000 in asphalt cost. And that's raw material. So I went ahead and had the street department guys help me, and this estimate on the left is just for redoing parking lots on the 3 at Carl Albert. That's the parking lot to the east, and well, let me start as it is listed in order. That's putting a 2-inch overlay on the swimming pool. That is the material cost only. That is with city personnel doing the labor. The other thing is, none of those, as you can tell, they're not striped. And then the other thing I'd like to do is I would like to do curb and gutter around them, so if people pull up there, they pull up to a curb, and it's a little safer, I think, for us by doing that. To do that swimming pool parking lot as material cost only with city labor, we're looking at about $40,000 for that. That east parking lot, the one I showed you where the drainage goes across it quite a bit, where we'd have to create the concrete plume and then overlay that again. And then we were going to put a drainage ditch under the driveways. If you notice going out there, the driveways are almost washed away because, again, the water cut across them, and there's no way to fix that without taking that water underneath those driveways. So we put whistlers or concrete drainage ditches underneath the driveways and then repave those. So that's a rough estimate on that one. And then the west parking lot that's over by the skate park, again, curbing, striping, and raw materials. We're looking at about $16,000 on that. So the total of the 3 parking lots just at Carl Albert's about $81,000, and that's a rough estimate, but it's fairly accurate because of what we just did the last 2 days. We know we're pretty close with that. Depending on the asphalt that you get, asphalt's running, depending on the day, the oil prices, those sort of things, we're seeing it $60 to $70 a ton. We put 261 tons down on that middle parking lot in the last 2 days. So that just kind of gives you an idea on that. On the right side, I listed other improvements over there. Again, concrete repairs to existing concrete. And that would be, like I showed you, we're on those walking tracks underneath those pavilions, those sort of things. Again, this is material cost only with our personnel doing the labor on that. The next item down is miscellaneous electrical and repairs that we need to do. One we found out was when we started putting the new LED lighting out at Carl Albert and also at Dixon Durant, the infrastructure, the electrical infrastructure was not up to par. We had to actually go in at Carl Albert and run new wiring, some underground, and over at Dixon Durant where the tennis courts are, the lights aren't even used, we can't get them to come on. So we have a problem there. We're gonna have to have a professional electrician to come and research that, possibly run more wiring there, so. And then we may, again, like I mentioned, if we do go with 220 heaters in those restrooms to keep our pipes from freezing, then that would also be covered in that $6,000 cost right there. I need to tell you too, on the Carl Albert Playground project, we are looking at some shortfalls possibly for some of the materials to finish that playground area. One of the things that we looked at, and I brought kind of an example to show you. We have to have fall protection wherever we have playground equipment. To back up a little bit, and I don't mean to throw stones, but this project really had no plan or oversight. So we're kind of having to make lemonade out of lemons, just to be honest with you on that project, so we don't lose the grant funding, and we've got to get that done. We looked at different kinds of fall protection. We looked at the turf, then, and this has a 2-inch rubber pad underneath it. So if a child falls off the playground equipment, they fall into the turf. And we have been taking bids. I had Caleb and Carissa working on that for us, or taking quotes for these materials. This particular product here, and that carries a 3-year warranty on it. For about $4,000 more, we can get this product that carries a 15-year warranty. So those were some unforeseen things that we're running into, that we think it's prudent to buy something that's warranted for 15 years for $4,000 more dollars, as opposed to something that, and you can obviously see the difference in that. We think that's good money spent. We're wanting to get to the point, I know it's John's goal, my goal, and let's do it right the first time instead of piecing this stuff together. Let's do it right. If it costs us a little more money, let's do it right. Because we think that's gonna enhance us over the long term anyway. That's gonna save us in replacement costs, because who's doing the labor on this stuff? It's us, it's our city workers. That's who's doing the labor. So the more times we have to go back, the more times that's costing us money. So, but I just kind of want to give you an idea about kind of some of the areas that we're looking at. So, but that would also include the infield that drops into this little rubber pellets in there. So we think that's much better way to go, and that's where that's built in there. We may have to have some funds there. And then the next item you see is lighting Carl Albert Park and Durant Dixon Park. That is a rough figure. We already have those poles, which is advantageous to us. We have some electric, but we don't know if the electric is good. So we figured roughly what it was going to take us if we had to replace the electric, put concrete pedestals down to where it would support the poles, and to do that project right. And then we would like to take and change out the heads on those poles and go to LED lighting as well. And again, the reason for that is so we don't have to replace them so often, and the energy consumption is dramatic savings for us. together, not to exceed $150,000 for those projects that I've shown.
I hate to be OCD, but those add up to 69, but the total's still 150, so it's just a typo.
Did I miss it?
Just a typo.
Okay, well, sorry, brother.
Can't help it.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, I didn't do the math on that very well, but I got the bottom number right, didn't I, brother?
I'll add to, especially on the asphalt, based on what streets cost, that sounds extremely reasonable to me.
It helps where we're doing it, cost-wise, dramatically helps, you know. Again, that stuff's running $60 to $70 a ton. A lot of that's based on what the oil price is, you know, at the given time, so.
James, great presentation. I have a question. The entry to the softball complex at the complex.
Yes, sir.
Some of that concrete's not in really good. It's got some cracks in it too.
Bad.
Walking in that main entrance there.
As part of our master plan,
Okay.
that is included in that we're gonna have to do something to that parking lot, that entryway, because it's getting rather weathered. That's been there since its opening day, and it,
405.
I think it's gonna need an overlay too.
So we might look at that at a later time.
Yes, sir, I can bring tons more. I have a big list of things that we've looked at honestly. But what we thought was, these are our two marquee parks.
Yeah.
In town right now, other than the complex. The complex is in better shape than these two parks are. So we looked at this as maybe the step moving forward. We just spent quite a bit of money on the swimming pool, redoing it, you know, and we just think it's money well spent on that.
Well, and Caleb and Carissa and what they're wanting to do there too, we sure want to support financially too, if we can in the future to help them do their job too.
Yes, sir,
Or
that's
to do
correct.
what we feel like we should be doing, but excuse me.
I like the idea that due to increased taxes and other things, this authority has the resources to do this, and we don't have to ask the city to bail us out, so I think that's a good thing.
I did check with Ann Chin before I put this together, and we have the resources to fund it.
And I just might add that James and I, you guys are seeing this with me for the first time too, but James and I had a conversation the other day, and that was one of the things I mentioned, that, you know, the authority members would certainly need to know and want to know that the funding from that quarter-cent sales tax for the complexes has been sufficient for the debt service and has allowed us to consider this along with another thing or two that we already have, as I mentioned earlier. But so
Again, I apologize for being not quite as prepared as I like to be. I like all the numbers to add up, Mike, so.
well, and I was having trouble there. I was coming up with 140 myself, but you're recommending a number at this time not to exceed 150,000.
That is correct at this time, yes, sir, for these specific projects. And that lighting on Carl Albert and Durant Dixon Park, I'm gonna twist Robert Holliday's arm on some of that, see if we can get some help from OG&E as well.
Well, and when we say not to exceed 150, and you mentioned it in your presentation that some of these things you kind of figured like starting from scratch, but some of that may be in place that the 150 may not, has a chance of not being totally spent.
No, sir, I don't turn any money back.
Yeah.
It,
Well, and what I'm trying to get at is indeed, the 150 is kind of the top dollar.
yes, sir,
But literally, it could come in under,
it
actual
could.
cost could come in under that.
Right, and I think that my goal would be, if we can't do it, we'll do it first class to the point that we run out of money. And that's kind of the way I think we should
I think
approach
this
it.
authority would be open to further consideration if indeed that, I'm just one vote up here, but I think at least we'd be in a position to consider that. Again, the financial, our successful sales tax numbers continue and so forth, should be in a position to certainly consider future needs too. John, or you have anything you want to add to it as city manager? Yep. Anybody have questions? It is an action item on our agenda, so we're following the Open Meeting Law Act requirements by, if we want to consider voting on this today. But any further questions for James?
I think I would like to just, I would like to feel comfortable that each of those line items, we can cover all of those as we need to cover them for $150,000.
I would too.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
before I give my, vote.
Yes, sir,
Yeah.
and that's as close as I can get,
Right.
given the information that I've been able to
Right.
gather, yes, sir.
Because is this project a part of what we need to complete? I mean, I'm trying to figure the 12/31 deadline on the grant funding and the connection between those two things. And it's unfortunate that we're down to the deadline, but
It is.
I don't want to feel like that deadline's put on me to vote for approval for this, because 4 years ago, we got this funding and may or may not have been good stewards of that funding, so.
I think Becca may be able to address it a little more than I on the grant. It was originally, I think, a 50-50 grant. And some things that we had no plan. We just kind of, and I say we, this was not our administration, but prior.
Right.
And we inherited this with a deadline that they're not going to extend.
Right.
Okay, so the only thing that you see on that is that $20,000 is the only thing you see. And that would be maybe to buy a better product than what would originally
Right.
they had put in.
That's the playground.
That is, sir.
Equipment.
Yes.
Right. So, yeah, okay, so we're not talking like,
Let,
Mind if I say a few things
Sure.
that might help you understand a little bit better? As James said, this was actually a plan developed on a napkin, okay? Prior administration, we had a lot of starts and stops throughout it. The Dream Court wasn't even part of the original plan. The Nancy Lieberman Foundation contacted the city, and it was a partnership with First United to bring that here. It didn't cost us anything for the court. We utilized this grant to build the concrete pad underneath it. But because of that, that shifted some things that we had originally planned. And then due to staff changes, administration, yada, yada. And then with COVID this year, it really put our staff behind. So we weren't able to finish up some things. And then James came on and started looking at, and John as well, the ADA issues that, because we did not have a hired inspector or an architect or engineer on this project, and city crews were doing the best that they could, it really did cause some issues. And we did try to get an extension because of COVID, but because it has to go all the way up to the federal level, they just said they really didn't think that we could. And, you know, if you looked at that first slide that he showed with the deteriorated tennis courts, that was actually built by this grant like in the 1970s. And we've made a lot of improvements over that, but it's just, it's a bigger monster than we had anticipated. So we really appreciate your consideration for this additional funding so that we can finish it. And it will be, it's considered a lot in the public as our central park. A lot of big events are held there, and I think it will be very beneficial to the community.
What
And
was
that-
the,
Just that one line item is the only line item that's going to be affected in this previous grant.
got it. Okay.
Yes, sir.
What was the amount on that previous grant? What was?
The grant amount is
can't-
$182,900. Our cash match was $69,000, and there was like $114,000 of our city labor and equipment towards that. And then, I meant to say, due to us having to bury the overhead electrical lines at the very onset of the project, there was rock that had to be dealt with. So that was $17,000 over our original budget just to bury the electrical lines. So we were set back at the very beginning. And so, and then James said something about the parking lot that was originally sealed has basically just disappeared. And so we had to redo that. So, any other questions?
I appreciate your concern on that, literally, but
Yeah,
that's the only line item
right. Relative to.
relative
match
to
on the
that.
grant.
Yes,
Okay,
sir,
got
that's
it. Okay.
correct.
All right,
Mhm.
yeah, that was my true concern.
Yes, sir.
Was this was the match for the grant, so.
No,
Okay,
sir,
I
not
got
at
you.
all, just
I
that
got you.
one
Yeah,
line item.
I'm
Yes,
with you.
sir.
Okay.
And again, if we can come in under budget there, we'll do that
Yeah.
as well.
Sure.
You know, so.
Sure.
Any other questions for James? Anybody? If not, I'll open the floor for a motion.
I do have just a question regarding funding, and I know we, just based on what we'd funded previously, and obviously we're generating some funds, and that's a good thing. It's a good time to be able to do these things. Can you direct me where, in our financials, maybe that I would kind of find where we're,
Okay,
I don't mean to
No,
be legal.
no, Mark.
this
just wanna make
page
sure.
is the really
Mhm.
cash that you have in the bank.
Yes,
And you can tell that just from the July to November, I got the November number is $180,324.
Mhm.
And just past this 5 months, we pay out the debt service, pay out all those loan payment and the expenditure. We accumulate $230,000 in the bank.
Mhm.
That is that we pay out the debt, we have the 2 debt service. And we pay out the expense for the Dcfa
Mhm.
expense. That's what we have in net,
Right, okay.
yeah. And this is just for past 5 months.
Yes, oh, yeah, yeah, it's a good thing, yeah. Okay. Thank you. And James, the timeline on all of that, are we gonna get all, 12/31, is that the date for all of this?
No, sir,
No,
just
okay.
line, the one,
Okay.
one line
Okay,
item,
gotcha.
the
All
20,000, yes, sir.
And then the remainder, just kind of, timeline on it is
Our,
ballpark.
our slowest time for our parks, when they don't have to mow, is the winter time.
Got it, yeah.
And same way with our street department, we can utilize them more in those months than we can, like today and yesterday, we had 13, 14 guys
Yeah.
working that project out there,
Got
you
it.
know? And that was combined from streets, parks, and actually multi-sports had four out. So we rallied the troops to get it done, but just to kind of give you some other ideas about, on December the 9th, we're gonna have a chainsaw safety training, and there's gonna be a bunch of those dead trees that's in that park coming down as part of that training. And we're gonna trim the trees up and, you know, things of that nature as well, that's not even included on this, but it's gonna be all city labor.
Be
on that.
careful there. We threatened to trim some of those magnolia trees on campus, and that didn't go so well, so just.
Right. We have OSU guys and OSU and OMAG coming down to supervise this, so we're hoping that goes well, you know.
And
So-
Mark brings up, you may have mentioned it, but do we have a completion date, or is it in phases or anything, James?
The asphalt, we can only get when it's above a certain temperature, when it's dry. But, you know, we had to just fit this in. I mean, yesterday and today, I mean, it was cold as a dickens out there yesterday too, you know, but they did produce enough asphalt for us that we could do it. I would think that would be something we'd probably move into the March, April timeframe when it's a little bit warmer for that. Now, they can go ahead and start on the drainage now. Now, that drainage, they can do that. That needs to happen before any asphalt goes down anyway, because we've got to get that water away from there, so they can be doing that. And the electricians, the people like that, we want to get those bathrooms opened up. And one thing, Caleb, or one thing, John, we didn't mention is, over the years, I'm used to working a 24, 7 days a week type department, but a lot of our departments aren't used to that. So we're also adding an evening shift to our parks, so that we'll have it, we're starting with one individual, so that in the evening time, we will have a parks person that can go around and lock these bathrooms up after the parks close and things of that nature, you know, that we've never done before. And if we're having a tournament or something at the complex, it'll give us somebody there in case there's a bathroom gets stopped up or whatever. So we're wanting to expand our service to the citizen by adding that evening shift individual. Also, we'll be adding a part-time weekend individual. So we need to do better.
Are we, and that's been kicked around for forever, and I'm glad to hear that's maybe coming to fruition. But do you think like a 6-month time frame, or that all that can fall in that?
I think so. I really do. I think we could, the only thing that might, and Becca mentioned when she was talking about, we got into, there is a layer of rock, of
Yeah,
limestone
I remember that.
rock, not far under the surface at Carl Albert. I mean, it's all, that entire area of town. If you go by where the new elementary school, there is a huge rock pile on the west side of where they're gonna put that foundation. That is the only thing that scares me about that lighting cost on that Carl Albert, is depending on if we hit rock, that that'll drive my cost up. That's just gonna be the way that is, you know.
I think I'd like to move, we approve $150,000 to fund capital expenditures at Carl Albert and Dixon Durant Parks.
We have a motion,
I second.
and we have a second. Is there any further discussion? Questions?
Can we get the engine back at Dixie Durant?
I would like to have that too. Yeah, I don't even know where it went.
That thing
Yeah.
was cool.
Well, I'm sorry, I missed that. What?
The train used
Oh.
to be at the.
Yeah, yeah. Golly.
I have no idea where that went.
Well, that's on the record, Joy, so.
Yeah, yeah.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee, Trustee Dillard,
Aye.
Trustee Gosnell,
Aye.
Trustee Morris,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Webb,
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you so much. I'll be a good steward of the money.
Appreciate
Guarantee
that,
you.
James. No.
Okay.
Good, great information, great questions, and great answers, or good, sufficient answers for everyone. We do have an agenda item, citizen comments. On non-agenda items, I don't know if we had a registration out there or not, but did anybody? I didn't get any requests. So there'll be no comments. And anything under new business? Hearing none, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move for adjournment.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. The secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Dillard,
Aye.
Trustee Gosnell,
Aye.
Trustee Morris,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Webb,
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Aye, we are adjourned. Thank you all. May not see you, some of you guys. Merry Christmas.